I am saying because of the Midnight Express's earnings of just under $100,000 in 1984, that Buddy Landell, since he was there for pretty much the whole year, I believe, with us, in his placement on the card in Mid-South Wrestling, would have probably made somewhere around 65 or 70, I would bet, right? Because I saw some of these checks. I know the Pat Rose, when he was just an opening match guy, but business was good during warm weather that summer. He was remarking he was having $1,000 a week, right? So hold on here a second. In 1984, let's say Buddy made $65,000. Being on the card and featured as Chris Reed's sidekick and in some important matches. And
year went on.
Yes. That today is equal to just under $160,000. So that's what over was making in 1984. Yeah, once again, I don't have those books, but I know what mine was. Over 100. That's what the main event guys make.
She
he's the one's the world champion and the other one's fucking Booker. So, but there was a disparity, but that $14,000 week, and this was without pay-per-view. There was no pay-per-view involved. There wasn't even a Starcade or a goddamn big stadium show. It was just fucking regular business.
Find another herd.
That's the equal of $32,642.99 today. If he was making that in the spring, how much would you guess he was making during the bash in the summer? Well, you know, here's the thing. This is printed in the Midnight Express book. We got a check for $17,000 for the 14 bashes. And there were only 14 Great American Bashes. The rest of the dates that summer were just regular shows. We were paid, you know, on the regular checks. But then at the end of the month period, they paid all the bashes in one. Because everybody was expecting more, right? And it didn't work out that way. But our total for, yes, it's on my wall, it's on the book, and I can't see either, but I can't remember. I'll just round it off. Our total for the month of July, me and the Midnight Express, was $22,000. So that today is $51,296. That's what we made for the month of July. Now, I refuse to believe this, but since Flair's check was 3 times what ours was, when I accidentally saw his, and we were the semifinal to his main event every night, then if we took that fucking equation and said, okay, Flair made 3 times as much as us in the month of July, that would be $66,000 then and $153,888 now. Wow. Well, I don't believe that. Because I think people would have heard about that fucking check. However, since we made $22,000, there's no doubt in my mind that Ric Flair, the world champion, who was on the main event of every card, we were semifinal in some. A couple of times we were main event because we were in with Dusty and Magnum and Baby Doll, and the cage had to go on last because you had to put the cage up, right? But Ric Flair was the advertised main event of every one of those. He had to make 40. He had to make 40. And that's the equivalent of 93 grand. And I mean, you know, unless, once again, I can speak with truth and documentation about my earnings. I have everything written down I ever fucking made, right? So I can, without fear of contradiction, give you these statistics, and then I can look at other people who were featured on the same cards in sometimes more prominent positions. And you mean to tell me that Jim Crockett was paying Ric Flair the same thing as the Midnight Express in 1986? No. Especially during the one time that I did see something, he paid him 3 times as much. Of course, those were for a couple of big sellout houses. Rick was on top. And when the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express sold out Columbia, South Carolina, the Township Auditorium, for the first time since, I believe they said 1978, it was an actual legitimate sellout in Columbia, the first time in 8 years. Normally, you made it $200 or $300 or $400 or $500 in Columbia, depending on where you were on the card and what the house was, at best, right? We got $1,000 a piece because that was something special. He said, here, you guys did something that all my other stars haven't been able to do in 8 years. Here's fucking $1,000 a piece. We're 80 miles from your house. Have one 15-minute match. I'll take that. But a lot of times you would, you know, the promoter had since he made it all up anyway, he made up the formulas and the fucking mathematical equations to figure out how much money you got paid. So if he wanted to fucking take care of you because you had done something good for the territory, he would. So I can't imagine that Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes as the equal top star on the babyface side and the Booker. You think he ain't making twice what we're making at least? So if you figure that, then that means that Dusty and Flair were both making, you know, $400 grand plus for 1986.
What do you think 86 ranks for Ric Flair, you know, at least until we went to the WWF, because obviously they start having pay-per-views in 87, 88, but it's not like they really had much strength. And then there's minimal merchandising. Do you think 86 is the peak for Ric Flair with Crockett Promotions?
Boy, well, Well, but see, also remember when the territories, when he had the belt the first couple of years, when the territories were still strong, and he was going to Japan and working for Bob on a regular basis, because Bob was paying him more than Robert was. And if you go to St. Louis, you get $5,000 or $6,000 payoff in one night for the sellout, so you got documentation on it. One time about when you go to work for Bill Watts, you'll pay twice as much as anybody else will pay. When you're in the main event with the promoter's son in Texas Stadium in front of 40,000 fucking people, probably made out okay. And that was 1984. But then I'm trying to get Christmas payoffs. Mega house that was 400 and something grand. Christmas payoff was 29 grand, and and Ric Flair was the NWA champion on a $400,000 house in Dallas, Texas, and didn't have anywhere near what they did in Shea Stadium. And was kind enough to promote his son and he was there was money changing hands in a lot of these territories. And then if you go back to the 70s, before Rick, Terry Funk, admits he quit the NWA title basically because he'd split up with Vicky and wanted to go back and straighten that out, which he did, and they were together another 40 years or whatever. But that was more important to him. But when you're making a quarter, but what was $250,000, let's just say, and that's not an awkward or outrageous figure for the NWA champion to have been making in the late 70s. Let's put in 1977 and say 250 grand is light. That's $1,054,000 today. But you had no life, you were always on the road, and that's why everybody except wanted to give the belt back.
Yeah, I was just reading Steve Barrier's Gene Kiniski book, and it's the same thing. He eventually was like, okay, I'm ready to go home. I can't.
Yeah. But that was the most sought after job in wrestling because from a period of 1972 through 1982, the three highest paid guys in the business would have been the NWA champion, Bruno Sammartino, and Andre the Giant. I mean, when I say in the business, Inoki and Baba was a whole different fucking...
Speaking of evil conglomerates,
boy, that was an easy segue.
That was the best one we've ever done. Have you been following everything that broke last week with Vince McMahon and WWE sending out a letter to talent notifying them that they are no longer allowed to have any third-party deals? They have to end these deals, whatever they have, within 30 days?
Well, yes, I was keeping up with this, and I think everybody was dumbfounded at what a third-party deal was. Because I know they quit doing third-party promoter deals. I was the last one in the office to do them, where you would book the contracted talent to third-party promoters on their days off to make them some extra money. They quit doing that because the rings were iffy and they didn't know whether a guy was going to get hurt or not or whatever, and then they started booking everybody and making them more money, and they eliminated that feature. What these third parties are now is the Twitches and Twitters and Cameos and all that stuff in the world, right? That's what they call third parties now.
I would think so. YouTube also, I would include in that.
Well, see, that's the thing. They're stating that they didn't actually come out and say what these third parties were, right? And that's why all the guys were up in arms like, well, what does this mean? Does this mean I've got to give up YouTube, or I've got to give up this, or I've got to give up that? And they're supposed to be clarifying this with, but here's the thing. I've said this before. The guys are horribly underpaid. The guy, in relation to what any other sports franchise pays its talent, the guy guys are also not treated as employees, even though they have to, whenever the office says jump, everything, blah, 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 be there, dress a certain way, call themselves a certain thing. They fit every requirement of an employee, but they are treated as independent contractors, so they don't get benefits, blah, 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 health insurance, all that good stuff. So they have now, and in a pandemic, they're not running shows, so they've now found a way to make extra money. You know which side of that I fall down on after that preamble, Brian? The office is right and boys are wrong. And I'm surprised it's got this far, and I'm surprised nobody's brought it up. In the 80s and 90s, in their pocket, if you were under contract to the WWF, you couldn't do an interview with the Poughkeepsie Bugle newspaper unless it was cleared by the office. You couldn't be on AM radio in fucking Gulfport at 5 in the morning unless it was cleared by the office. These guys are doing their own thing under their own names while being advertised as and publicly seen on national TV as different people on the fucking WWE television program. I would have nipped that in the bud long ago. You've got a guy that's a Russian on TV, but on fucking Twitch or on Twitter, he's using his real name and he's from fucking Cleveland. Or you've got people that are supposed to be in this torrid affair, but on Cameo or on fucking whatever the Facebook, they're married to other people. Or they actually have their real names or their gimmick name, so-and-so, as played by so-and-so. How long would it have taken Vince McMahon in the 80s or early 90s, when he had control of his fucking company and his faculties, if a guy that was presented as someone on his television program had come out in the newspapers or on national television, because that's the equivalent now of the internet, and you disseminate knowledge publicly. That's the way you would do it back then: newspaper, magazine, television. And say, well, I'm really not this guy. My real name's so-and-so, and I really don't have anything to do with this at all. He would have fired him. I would have fired him. Every booker, every promoter would have fired him. The only way your guys' real names got out in the fucking public perception is when they were arrested or sued and it made the newspaper, and then you tried to cover it up. One part of a successful part of booking a wrestling roster in a wrestling company is having complete, when you know what you're doing, when you're
if you could find one, I'd be
complete and
grateful
total
beyond
control
measure.
over your talent and the way that they are advertised, publicized, and perceived in public. So all these guys going out there doing their own thing, this evil heel really fucking plays video games and contributes to charity. It's all bullshit. Be who you're supposed to be every time that you are mentioned, talked about, appear, or speak in public. Be who you're supposed to be. So all this...
Hold on,
wait a minute. I'm about to get to a point. So all this fucking bullshit, business exposing, gimmick exposing, third-party shit that they all do as private citizens, they can do after they're off WWE television when they're not wrestling stars anymore. And in the meantime, there's a simple way to cut this shit out and concentrate on fucking getting talent over and not having these outside fucking influences and these third parties. Make the guys employees, give them insurance, and pay them right. They won't have to fucking get on Cameo. I think the talent is wrong for doing all this. It's not something you should do in a wrestling company. And now that it's possible to do this with social media, since the WWE is currently the most well-financed wrestling company in history, they ought to say, no, you're not doing this. We're going to pay you. We're going to pay you however much money that you've agreed to or that you want to agree to, without you doing this. Either agree to it, sign, we'll pay you, don't do this outside shit, or don't agree to it, we won't sign you, go do your outside shit. You can't double dip. If you're not... Hey, if there was guys smart enough out there to fucking be all over social media and get themselves over as who they're supposed to be, like MJF, that'd be one thing. That's fine. But your real names, violating your fucking gimmick, doing things out of character for your who you're supposed to be, no. But at the same time, especially for these underneath guys, they've got to make it worth their while to fucking not be working shows and et cetera, and maybe they could finally figure out after what's it been, 10 years, how to pay royalties off that fucking network. Because everybody's royalty checks went to shit once that thing came up. So yeah, and it's always, the contracts have always been that way. We own your intellectual property, your likeness, your blah blah blah, even your real name for the term of the contract. Some people had that fucking sideways. How can they own their real name? They can't own their real name forever, but while they're under contract to the WWE, they own everything about them. Which is another reason why I'm not going to sign any more contracts ever again. But I don't need to. So, both sides are correct in the way they're looking at it.
I think if they were employees, you'd be correct. But the reason those contracts wouldn't hold up if anyone really wanted to fight it in court is because they're independent contractors. And WWE does not have the right to tell these people that they can't go out there and do things on the side. In terms of people using their real name, they're doing that because that they've been able to get away with. If it was, Hulk Hogan, well, I shouldn't say it because he owns his own name. But if it was a guy using a name that WWE owns, even if it's a name the guy picked for himself while under their employee, then, WWE would go out and stop them. People are using their own names to get around that. People are using their own names to play video games.
I know.
And
It's
stuff.
fucking ridiculous.
Your argument about them exposing the business, that's not the WWE's argument. So I'm not even going to throw anything towards that.
They're making themselves look goofy. Ronda Rousey had some kind of aura about her as this badass judo champion, Olympic champion, chick that would kick your ass, and now she's on the internet playing a saxophone and video games and feeding chickens. They don't know how to keep themselves over.
This is WWE wanting to take the money that people are making on side deals, and this is also WWE getting upset by things like, AJ Styles destroyed Paul Heyman on Twitch, and it got out there. It's not about AJ Styles using his real name, it's about him exposing behind-the-scenes stuff in the company.
You have shown me
That's true also. Once again, you always had to have clearance to do an interview because they wanted to make sure you weren't going to say something they didn't want you to say. This is not new. Anybody that's gone into that company and think that you have any freedom to do anything, you're crazy. But I'm just saying, when so many guys are doing so much goofy shit that's detrimental to the way they're being presented and or perceived by the public, of course the office doesn't want to do all this stupid shit on fucking other platforms, but they need to pay them
But they need to be employees.
to make up for that. But they need to be employees, or they need to pay them enough to where they don't fucking feel like they need to do that, because it's mutually exclusive. You can't do both.
And let's talk a little bit about the history with this. Sergeant Slaughter was one of the top baby faces in the World Wrestling Federation in 1984. He ended up leaving because he signed his own deal with G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon said, all my talent is with me and my deal with LJN. No one's going to have their individual deal. And Sergeant Slaughter was gone. He was one of the top guys. Jesse Ventura left in 1990 because he signed his own video game deal with Sega, and Vince McMahon didn't want anyone to have their own individual deals. Jesse Ventura was gone from the WWF. Now, Jesse Ventura has been one of the people very vocal about the independent contractor clause, how bullshit it is with wrestling.
You return.
Did you see the
Now let us...
Andrew Yang tweets?
Yes, good old Andrew, he's a fan. Hey Vince, get your independent contractor shit straightened out.
Well, no, even beyond that. I mean, I have it in front of me. If I'm not the Secretary of Labor, I'm pretty confident I'll have his or her number to talk about the ridiculous classification of WWE wrestlers as independent contractors while controlling their name and likeness for years, even for something as benign as Cameo. That's what it is. What your argument is earlier, I think is valid only if they're employees. But if you're going to say that someone's an independent contractor, you have to treat them like an independent contractor. And that means you can't prevent them from doing anything else. You can't say, you only work for me, you can't work for anyone else, you're an independent contractor.
But you can, thing. If you tell me, Jim, I'm going to sign you to this contract for $1 million instead of 400 grand, and you're going to be an independent contractor, but you can't do anything else. I wasn't making an extra 600 on the side anyway, Vince. So fine. You can still do it. You can write it. That's what I've said about the deals. They can make any deal that Vince wants to make. He can put any clause in, take any clause out, make any deal.
Nice
Done it
twist of
many
arm.
times. There's been all kinds of customizations go on. If he
Brock
wants to.
Lesnar had sponsors on his for a while.
He got the Jimmy John, the fucking fat fuck that likes to go over and slaughter all the animals in Africa because he's a gutless, dickless wonder. And fuck Jimmy John and his fucking sandwiches, a piece of shit.
I wasn't familiar with Jimmy John. I didn't know about that.
You didn't know that? No. There's an actual Jimmy John. He's a fat, disgusting-looking fuck that has pictures of himself smiling from ear to ear, sitting on top of giraffes and elephants and rhinoceroses that he uses his sandwich money to fly over to fucking Africa and murder because they take all these rich white fucks like Douchebag Von Fuckface and Thurston Shitbag III, the two Trump twins. They go over there and they make up for their small dicks with their big guns and they murder these beautiful animals. And Jimmy John's same way. That's why I wouldn't eat a goddamn Jimmy John sandwich if I was dying of starvation. That was the last food on the earth. He can go fuck himself. But that's why that fucking, yeah, because Vince said, okay, if Brock wants to have Jimmy John on his fucking ass, he can have Jimmy John on his ass. Because it's Brock. So Vince can make any specific deal he wants to make. The underlings just tell guys that he can't, because that way they don't all ask for special deals.
Did you see CM Punk's tweet?
I did not.
All right, guys, girls, are they going to fire everyone? Just keep doing you. Don't worry.
Well,
I like him more and more. I got to say something.
Yeah.
Since he left wrestling, and I liked him as a wrestler, he was really good. I like him more and more the more I read his tweets and his attitude towards that company. I like him more and more.
And just the curmudgeonly stance, but that wasn't a thing. It's a gentle curmudgeon. But what if they can't fire y'all? What if everybody just said, well, you know what? Fuck it. There's a pandemic, all this other shit going on. We're just not going to show up. The same thing that happened in the previous 40 years. Even if that began something, but because the boys can't get together and can't stay together, it doesn't happen. And now, that's another reason why this publicly traded mainstream company, big business bullshit, talking about him on Wall Street, that's horribly detrimental to the wrestling business because now he's got legitimate people with their eyes on him, Andrew Yang, and I know the Secretary of Labor. Sooner or later, somebody's going to pay attention to this shit and take it seriously even though it's wrestling. So
they'll try to sell the company before they lose that independent contract.
But anyway, the whole thing is I agree with both sides, and I explained why.
Did you see any of the other tweets?
But I'd love to hear you read me some.
The former Renee Young, Renee Paquette, the wife of John Moxley.
I believe I've heard their name.
So, yes, that would be a good time to launch my There's a good example. Her name's Renee Paquette. She was Renee Young in WWE. I believe she chose that name, I read somewhere, because she was a fan of Neil Young. She doesn't own that name. She picked the name. They trademarked it. They own it. If she's the one who came up with the name, tell me how that's fair.
She should have gone to an independent show and used it first once there.
And then they would have said you have to come up with something else because we're not going to use that.
Well, exactly. And see, I've said that's garbage too because I always wanted, if I started guys, I wanted them to go away and become stars elsewhere and then have the same name so that when they come back to me, they can draw me some money because now they're big stars. That's the way wrestling worked. If nobody else could ever have this name, I understand why they do it, but it's just led to more of the fact that wrestling has turned into garbage. The guys can't travel. Guys can't be stars all over the world. We have a simple tweet from independent contract. Monetary gain
Good to meet all the dead machines here. Might find a parts I'm looking for.
Fucking stars that would just sooner say fuck you and leave than do something stupid that they didn't want to do. In some cases, do something good they didn't want to do for some stupid reason. Now he's got a bunch of guys that just fucking show up and wait to be handed a script
Every
and
screen
verbiage
showed
and
up.
told
I needed.
what their match is
I'll
going to
have to
be.
go to another machine
And
site.
they're just happy to be there. There are no more stars. There are just cast members.
Alright, our next question, Jim, since the corny drive to gmail.com, is from Michael Scriven, Springfield, Missouri.
You dirty Scriven.
Heard you do a list on the most boring wrestlers. How about this list of the worst tag teams?
Oh, another list.
And he sent a list that was recently posted of the top 7 worst tag teams on 41180.
Okay, now is this of all time?
Let me just see, we spent a good portion of 2020 honoring the great tag teams in the past. That was one of the few things I enjoyed. However, we didn't, just saying, I guess,
can
of
film
all
it after
time,
these later.
I think
So
so.
where are the ding-dongs?
Well, number 7, the Dicks. They work for you in,
Yes.
they were great actually in OVW this whole
No, the Dicks didn't work for me. The guys who were turned into the Dicks in the WWF worked for me, and they were very good, especially Tank Toland. He was brilliant. His gimmick brother Chad, who looked so much like him, we just said, fuck him, he's your brother. He wasn't nearly as good a worker or as smart to the business as Tank was, but he got tremendous heat because of that sappy smile and the fact that he was kind of doofusy. But the Dicks were a horrible team.
Wasn't the story when they were on the main roster with that horrible gimmick? They got into a fight in the locker room between the two of them.
I think they did. I think Tank finally punched him.
Number 6 on the list of the 7 worst tag teams of all.
Chad Dick was the Dick, the other brother. What was Tank's name as a Dick? I remember Chad Dick.
It doesn't have it here.
Okay, all right.
Number 6 on the list. Techno Team 2000.
Ooh, yeah, that was
Roy and Travis.
that was pretty bad. Also, there was Eric Watson. Who?
Chad Fortune.
That's right. Whatever became of him?
I don't know. I don't know where he came from, and I don't know where he went.
Well, nobody's looking for him, so let's leave it that way.
Troy and Travis. Techno Team 2000. That was pretty bad. Number 5, the Spirit Squad.
Well, that doesn't really qualify as a tag team because there was 5 of them. I've called that in the past the St. Valentine's Day, a massacre of bad gimmicks. Instead of just killing one guy's career with a bad gimmick, they killed 5 guys. One of them had to change his fucking name entirely. Dolph Ziggler overcame it and continued on in the business. But poor Mondo and Johnny Cheater, who could have been a big star. Ken Doane had some attitude issues when he was young because he was young. He was here when he was 18. He was like 6'4" and whatever. But he also was very talented. Could have been a big, but they just fucking. Nick Mitchell was the 5th one, and he had a bad back anyway, and was injured a lot, and probably wasn't gonna make it to begin with. But yeah, the Jeter and Mondo and Doane never recovered, and that was a crime because they were the best. Jeter and Mondo were both better than Nemeth, Dolph.
Number 4 on the list, the 7 worst tag teams, the Harris Brothers.
What?
Ron and Don Harris, also known as the Bruise Brothers, Jacob and Eli Blue, Skull and 8-Ball of the Disciples of Apocalypse. I don't remember this. Patrick and Gerald of Creative Control.
Oh, that has to be a shit-stained thing from TNA.
And Jared and Jacob Grimm.
The Harris boys are nowhere near a list of the worst tag teams ever that we haven't got to the ding-dongs on yet. I don't see where they've got that from. Well, but they may have seen, because DOA was what it was. It was all those interchangeable groups at that point. And I will admit the Grimm twins and the Blues didn't set anything on fire, but Ron and Don Harris, that's them against the heavenly bodies of the fucking Moondogs. Ron and Don. long period
Better
of
loot
time.
all the machine
I guess
carcasses
that's
here.
one of those things where they
I
had
might
one
find the
match
parts I
per
need.
year or whatever, right? Because if they've only been there a couple of weeks in OVW and they worked out some of the classes and everything, so I'm going to put them in a dark match at the TV taping so that I can see what's fuck. And it's what I always did before I put anybody on television. I put them either in dark matches, either at the taping or over at the flea market or a small show, whatever.
Let me get the parts I need here.
And I can't
Let me try
remember who the
another
baby
location.
faces are, but the Shane twins are the heels. And the finish is going to be, I gave simple finishes because I figure if they can pull this off seamlessly, you know, then we can build on something. If they can't do this, then all hope is lost. That's like if I gave Linda Miles the finish in her last match in OVW. I took 4 minutes, small package. She couldn't do that.
Perfect.
So
This
with
green
the
shine for
Shane
later?
twins, okay, one twin will hold the baby face. The other twin will run for the clothesline, right? But the baby face will duck, and the one twin will clothesline the other twin, who of course will take a bump. Then the baby face's partner blows over and nails the fucking guy that just threw the clothesline through the ropes, and the guy that took the bump gets covered. 1, 2, 3. Simple, right? How can a tag team finish be any easier? It can't. I'm watching that match from the announce desk. We're about to fucking start the taping. Guess what the finish was, Brian?
What's that?
One of the Shane twins holds the baby face. The other Shane twin lines up for the clothesline and runs. As he throws the clothesline, the baby face ducks it, and so does the Shane twin. The fucking guy throwing the clothesline went over the top of both of them. Then the Shane twin that ducked realized he stood up and looked left and right and realized that his brother had run past him and that he made a mistake. And then he took a bump. And the OVW fans in the Davis Arena scoffed laughed. time ago, it's that you don't feel really good unless you've had every gap filled numerous times, over and over. Athletic Greens has obsessively improved this formula based on the latest research, and they've produced 53 different versions of this over the last decade. They keep renewing it and upgrading it. They invest in the most improving it. That's what I'm trying to say. They invest in the most absorbable and natural source of each ingredient and go above and beyond in the third-party testing. So, and it's lifestyle friendly, keto-free, paleo-free, vegan-free, dairy-free, flea-free, dairy-free and gluten-free.
No fleas.
No fleas. Less than 1 gram of sugar. The only thing it is it's not free. However, we can get you some free stuff. Because if you go to athleticgreens.com/JCE, then you will not only be able to get the Athletic Greens, but a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. If you visit that link, the one I just gave you, athleticgreens.com/JCE, free 1 year of vitamin D, 5 free travel packs, as well as this incredible superfood daily nutritional beverage, Athletic Greens. It's green as a pepper tree.
You know, so many people, New Year's resolution. I was going to say revolution. New Year's resolution is to get into shape, be healthier. The best way to do it, Athletic Greens, start each and every day with all the vitamins and all the minerals, all the nutrients you would need. It's a great way to kick off the new year and start a new regimen. Invest in your health.
Fill in them gaps.
Well,
Fill those gaps over and over, as full as they'll go.
let's fill some more gaps here on this show. Someone, and I'm not going to use this listener's name, I'll thank him, but one of the listeners recently, let me try to read what he wrote here without saying his name. I worked backstage at SmackDown. I have a 21-page document that an agent producer left near Pyro.
Oh, God.
He never came back for it. It has details of every single segment of the show, including the scripted promos.
Oh, Jesus.
And it has who the agents are. He also says Sami Zayn was the one that stood out the most as walking around rehearsing his promo all night. Do you have any interest in knowing who the agents are? You bring this up every now and then.
Well, I didn't know you were going to go there for that question. I was just... Before we get to that, what the fuck? At one point, when we have the production meeting, let's say pay-per-view or Raw taping day or whatever, the production meeting would be at noon or 11 in the morning or whatever. Everybody is giving out the format for the show, right? Not only the agents and the wrestling side of people, the people on creative and the agents and Vince and the announcers, but also the TV crew, camera people, director, producer, the important people that are in the production meeting. And the WWF back in the 90s, there was probably 30 people in those meetings. I can't imagine what they look like now. Every fucking format had a name on it. Because if a format was found laying around, you knew exactly who to go to and beat about the head and face with a ball-peen hammer. Because for exactly the reason that the formats had too much information. And if you left it laying around, it's like you're behind enemy lines in World War II and you're leaving government fucking secrets where the Nazis can find them. You are exposing the business when you leave the formats and the paperwork around where building employees and janitors and security people or whoever can find them. Which is why, and that's what their formats always, it made me uncomfortable anyway, because the format is the same that's given out to everybody. It has everything. It has the interviews. It has who's going to go over, play whose music at the end. That's why I've said before, TV formats in wrestling used to be one page. Segment 1, segment 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Open, desk, announcers, 2 ring, match. Out of match, 2 VTR interview. That was all that was on the format. You could hang that up on the fucking wall in any building you were in. And yes, everybody knows a TV show has to have a run sheet. You gotta know what match is coming up one after another, but it didn't give anything away about the business. Then the WCW started doing a lot of paperwork, but the formats remained the same, and you had extra paperwork to give to fewer people, only the people that needed to be in on what was going on in terms of those promos or those matches or whatever. The WWF formats started being fucking 7-8 pages for a single show, and they would put in verbiage, and they would put in reviews. And then if you start leaving that around, then you're completely boxed if an outsider. And now that's a 21-page run sheet for a fucking TV show that includes everything, and they're leaving them around like it's bubblegum wrappers. What the fuck? Here they are calling me right now to find out what's going on. Hold it. I don't need none, don't want none, don't have none. Pick your answer and shut the fuck up. There we go. All right. Anyway. So what I was saying about the formats is now they leave these things around and there's everything, and it's embarrassing. Remember, there were several years ago, one of the Raw formats, they were only about 14 pages at that point, was reprinted on the internet for everybody to see. Dusty, literally, when we went to TV for the syndicated TV or for TBS, he used to have a fucking piece of paper that he had handwritten, everybody's initials or their nickname. Kevin Sullivan was either Sully or Devil. Dennis Conger was DC Cab, because that's when the movie came out. Bobby Eaton was BLE, Bobby Lee. It'd be BLE and DC Cab versus Maggie and whatever the fuck, right? Maggie TA. And that's all that was hanging on the wall. You just didn't know what the fuck it was if you were working on the show, barely. But now they just throw this paperwork around and expect it. Oh my God. But yeah, used to they put the name, when they had some people finding formats laying around, they put your name on it. And if somebody found your format unattended with your name on it, you got some fucking feet stuck up your ass.
There's a name over here in the top corner. What does it say? Steve or Brett? No name on this one. It is entitled SmackDown Live number 1143, Welcome Home, Revision 3.
Oh my God.
There's some revisions, but I mean, it's so scripted.
We used to revise shit at the show when somebody didn't show up. Then we'd scratch their name out and put somebody else in. Otherwise, if it fucking worked yesterday, it should be just as good today.
Even Vince McMahon's promo where he said, "Where the hell have you been to the fans?" That was scripted. That's in the format.
Oh, man.
The pages are a little out of order, but for instance, Bianca Belair versus Carmella, the producers were T.J. Wilson and Holly Holly. Story of the match. Bianca Belair is no stranger to defending her SmackDown Women's Championship, but the EST of WWE is certainly accustomed to having more than 1 week. On the line, Bianca's planned opponent, Bayley, is out due to an injury, leaving room for Carmella to slide in, make a run at the title. Will Carmella be able to take advantage of the unexpected circumstances and secure the coveted championship?
Oh my God. I assume that's for the announcers. That's the only people it could be for, and good God, if you have to write it out for the announcers like that, then do you have to also spoon feed them and wipe their ass after they shit?
6-man tag match, Edge, Rey Mysterio, and Dominic Mysterio versus Roman Reigns and the Usos, the Agents, Michael Hayes, and Pat Buck. Michael Hayes still aging in matches.
It's amazing. The one guy you thought would have been fired by Vince McMahon, well, he was the first time he worked for him within 24 hours, and he's been there for 25 years.
And here's a promo. I'll play the role of Kayla Braxton here. Edge, despite your loss, you are one step closer to defeating Roman Reigns this Sunday.
Wait a minute, they've written the stand-up announcer's pitch in the back? They've written that out?
Edge, despite your loss, you are one step closer to defeating Roman Reigns this Sunday for the Universal Championship. Edge interrupts and says, I wish that were the case. I wish by locking my arms on Roman's neck and making him scream and flare, I somehow unlocked the magic formula. They could use it with the championship. Oh, it's just like a fucking...
You know, the other way to do it would be, okay, you're interviewing me, and we're in the back. That's it. How long we got? Okay, Brian, why don't you ask me a question like this? And you'd ask me a question like that, and I'd answer it, and I'd do the promo. That's the preparation that you would do if you actually knew what the fuck you were doing. They're writing this out word for word and putting it on paper and handing it to these for pre-tapes? A fucking 45-second pre-tape is written? Who does that?
Vince McMahon.
Oh my God.
And then Seth Rollins came out here because it has Seth. Boy, oh boy, it looks like your plan might be working. The scratching, the clawing, the improbable comebacks. That's right, comebacks. Plural. No one speaks like this when you run into anyone.